Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 33 of Zipline, the official Zipper Interactive podcast. I'm Chris Roper.
I am Jeremy Dunham, and together we are your community team.
Combined forces.
Activate! And today we are joined by Zipper Game Director Seth Luisi. Hi, Seth.
Hello.
Seth is here to talk about the beta, how it's going so far, how we've been doing, what we're going to do, etc. But before we do that, real quick, what are you doing here? You're off. You just had a kid.
I'm here for the show.
Yeah.
I'm here for the people.
You're here for a break is what it is.
Yes.
you want to take a few minutes to yourself and get some time that doesn't involve feeding and changing.
Talk about some video games instead of diapers. But let's get on to the news.
Well, since our last podcast, we've released a few things. As we mentioned last time, we were at PAX East in Boston, and we showed off some exclusive levels from SOCOM 4 there. Went really well. The feedback was extremely positive, and for the most part, the lead designer said that it was pretty much Travis Steiner and Kevin, the other guys who were there, said it was pretty much full the entire time. So that's a good sign. He also gave a first-hand account of the event, posted that on the blog. I want to say sometime last week, and he was really happy with it.
Jeremy, what else do we have coming up on the blog? In
the next few weeks, we're going to have a couple of things. We're going to have a look at some fly-throughs for the multiplayer maps, which we talked about before. Something that we're going to do. That's going to be soon. We're also going to look at all of the weapons in the game, not just the ones that are in the beta, but in the final game as well, so you know what's coming up. And that includes Abandoned, by the way, when I was talking about the maps. And we'll have a few other things, but those are the major things worth looking at on the blog.
Other things coming SOCOM 4 related in terms of content is that we're working on SOCOM 4 avatars and themes for
complete
use
with long blue tails.
Yes, for use on PS3. And we'll also have some goodies in the works for home. And we're also putting the finishing touches on some behind-the-scene pieces that we're going to be running up on the website. Those were filmed a little while ago, and they get pretty in-depth with some stuff. So they should be
turned out pretty
cool.
well. We were looking at them last week as we're finishing them off. They turned out very well. And also, if you watch Core on the PlayStation Network, SOCOM 4 is going to be a big part of the next episode. That's episode 35, I believe, which hits in early April. The Core team flew out here. Chris and I worked with them. They were a great team to work with, by the way, and I'm really happy with how the video turned out. I think you guys are really going to like it.
Now, while SOCOM 4 is obviously our big focus right now since the beta just came out, we will have a announcement for MAG next week.
That's right.
No details on what that is yet.
Yes.
But,
we'll tell you this. Let's keep them under control and realize it's not like a MAG 2 announcement or anything. But it is an announcement, and we think it's a good one for fans. And then, of course, the biggest news, obviously, was the release of our SOCOM 4 beta. We opened the private beta on March 15th. PlayStation Plus users came in earlier this week on the 22nd. On the 29th, we get this question quite often, is when the Killzone people come in with their vouchers, and then finally...
And the people that were at PAX and got vouchers from there.
Exactly. And on April 5th is when we open up to anyone and everyone. And that's exactly why Seth is here with us today, is to talk about the beta, like we said earlier, how it's going, the feedback, etc. So, back to Seth. Chris, ask him a question.
Seth, how is the beta going?
The beta is going great. I mean, we've been getting lots of really good feedback. We've been monitoring the servers. We've been jumping in games, playing with people, getting feedback in-game through the forums. And, it's been going really, really well. So we've been identifying a lot of the issues we want to address and, making lists and prioritizing those issues. And, it's been great. This is what a beta is all about. It's about getting it out there and getting feedback from the community and the fans, and we're definitely getting feedback. I think the other great thing about the beta so far that we do is we stress test the servers. So we look at how are the servers performing under load, and so far things have been great. We've had very few stability issues. We've identified a few things with the clan challenges and a few other things that need addressing that we, it's great to catch it early in the beta so that when the game comes out, we can have those things worked out.
In terms of feedback, as you mentioned, we have had a lot. We've had over, at the time of recording this, which is Thursday afternoon, we've had over 45,000 comments in our beta forum so far. We can only imagine how many more we're going to get once all the PlayStation Plus users get in there, and then we continue that on with the Killzone. So, but definitely keep it coming. We are reading, and we do appreciate it. Now, we put out a small patch, version 101, to fix a display issue, basically, with some of the game types where, we had some issues there. But what are some of the other things we've already adjusted based on feedback that beta players can see in-game already? I know round length and round count was something we've already changed.
Yeah, we took a look at the games that you see listed there, we internally call them queues. So if I mention that, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But we found some issues with the queue configuration on the server where things were misconfigured. Some rounds were too long. Some didn't have enough rounds. So, we actually intended for suppression to have 5-minute rounds and 11 rounds. And that's not the way it went out. I think it went out with 7-minute rounds and I don't remember, seven rounds or 7 rounds. So that was just an error, a bug, and we were able to resolve that pretty quickly. We found some other issues with non-respawn as well, where I think it was uplink was set to, or last defense was set to 3 30-minute rounds, which is on a map, which is an hour and a half of gameplay. That's a long session. So, we addressed that as well. So again, that's what the beta is about, looking at those things, seeing what fell through, and trying to address them quickly.
Can players expect to see any more changes to the beta itself before the beta period ends?
Well, it's something we really want to do. We're making improvements. We're making fixes. We have several fixes done. Our first priority is getting those things done and patched for the final game. And there's a little bit longer lead time with some of the other things there. So we've been gathering those fixes, making those fixes, testing them, preparing patches for the final game so that those issues are addressed in the final game. And then after we've done that, then we look at patching all those changes and fixes into the beta. So we definitely want to get another patch out there that addresses a lot of these common issues. And, but we have to see where we are with the schedule. And the beta, unfortunately, to us, it seemed like it was going to be a long beta, but man, is it going by fast. And I wish it was longer now.
Now, one of the reasons that a lot of the fans out there have been looking forward to this podcast in particular is because it is a discussion about the beta, and that Seth is on here, and they want to know what our approach is to some specific feedback in the beta, things that have come up frequently in the 9 days or so since we started running it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break it up basically into 2 sections. One are glitches or bugs or possible exploits that you guys have brought up quite often, and to find out whether or not they're real or by design, et cetera. And then the other one is going to be feature adds and requests or tweaks and what we are going to do, if anything, about.
Yeah, because these are 2 very different things. One is something of saying, hey, we have to fix this because there's a problem. And the second one is saying, let's go into a meeting and talk about this and see if these suggestions that we're getting are the right thing to do.
And how realistic is it that we can actually apply it. So to kick off, we've turned off a few things in the beta, as we mentioned, the Clan Challenge system and the Community Day Classic game type. I posted a thread earlier in the week on the beta forums. Chris didn't read it. He was too busy getting drunk. But can you address exactly what we did in regards to those 2 things and why?
Yeah, I think those 2 issues identified some server stability issues that we're working on addressing now. So we actually hope to update the servers and get those issues addressed pretty quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have a good time frame on that. But again, both the Clan Challenge system, once we opened it up to PlayStation Plus, we got a lot more players jumping in, playing the game. We found that it wasn't scaling past a certain point, was causing other issues, so we had to disable it. Now we're looking at those issues, trying to fix them, and then hopefully we'll have a server update and be able to make it available again soon. And for the Community Classic game type, we also had some issues with that. It was causing some server stability issues, which was actually causing the whole server to go down. So we had to disable that now while we diagnose what's causing the issue and, again, try to get a server update out there to fix it.
And so people are clear. The idea is that by the time the final game comes out on April 19th, that the Community Day Classic game type, the goal is to have that up and running as one of our custom game types, along with a lot of the other ones they're already playing in the beta.
Yeah, all of the queues that you see here will be included in the beta, plus more. I mean, we'll have more of these games up there and available than what you see now. These are kind of the high-level versions, but we're also looking at doing small map versions of these and different player counts. And so these are kind of the master queues, and doing some more medleys as well with different maps and different game types, similar to the Community Day Classic. Mm-hmm. We kind of distilled it down for the beta to get more focused feedback on the different game types. But all of these game types will be available all the time, plus additional options. And
we got what we needed, too. We discovered with the Community Day Classic, the medley, the type of challenges it presents, and now we know what we have to address, and we can get those ready to go on time.
As we're talking about feedback, I think one of the important things, we tried to kick this off on the forums, but it really helps us if people rather than getting, there's 45,000 posts, rather than getting a post about the same items over and over and over again, it really does help us when you search, find that somebody else had the same items and maybe kudo them and get a little more organized, because it is a little unruly there trying to go through the forums. Having spent a lot of time trying to go through the forums myself,
yes,
it's hard because, I'll see a few threads I want to read. I'll read one of them, and then I go back and try to read the other one. It's gone.
Yeah.
So, it's we did set up the sticky threads, which are we do want people to use those as much as possible, but try to adhere to the rules as we stated in there, which is just post once. And, if you have additional information, go back and edit your post. Please don't post over and over again. Don't flame anyone. Again, that just causes a lot of extra stuff that we have to go through. And, in many ways, that's hurting our ability to get the feedback and address it quickly.
Yeah, and I will say that just from having read the forums for however long I've been here now, is one thread with 1 billion replies is better than 1 billion threads with just no replies in it at all. So we will see, you get those threads going, even if it's a thing that you agree with and you get in there, you just say, yep, I agree with this, and that's your entire post. Great. When we see something with 1 million replies, we know it's going to be important to look at, and we're going to take a look. So
use those kudos.
Yeah, use kudos. Another thing that people are seeing in the beta right now is that sometimes they spawn into a black screen, or they'll spawn with a user in spectator mode with crosshairs on the screen. What's up with that? Is that being fixed?
Those are definitely bugs that we're looking to address. I don't have a time frame for when those two items are going to be fixed, but they are known issues that we have our team looking at and trying to get fixed up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Chris just mentioned spectator mode. Another one of the items right now is that there is a delay when switching between players that you're watching while in spectator mode. And so where are we on this one? Is this intentional? What's the deal?
Yes, that's one I've seen mentioned a few times in the forums as well. That's a trickier one to resolve. Now, the reason for that delay is that when you are changing between players that you're spectating, you're being transported from one section of the world to a completely different area of the world. Our game uses a very aggressive streaming engine to bring in high-res textures and geometry and everything else. So when you're moving, it actually has to load quite a bit of data off the disk, and it takes a while for that to happen. So, when you're switching between those spectator cameras, keep in mind you're going to a completely different spot, and it takes a while for the game to load all the assets necessary just to draw the screen and the air in that new area of the world. You don't notice it when you're playing the game, which is great. You shouldn't notice it. So when you run around and walk around, you don't notice that these assets are loading and streaming, but they are. And so when you instantly change spectator camera views, and specifically the further away in the world these two characters are, the longer that delay is going to be.
This isn't on the sheet, but since you talked about loading, just out of curiosity, one thing that's come up a lot is there going to be an install for SOCOM 4? A lot of people have been asking that. If you could really quickly let them know whether or not there'll be an install, and if there will be, roughly how big will it be?
So having dealt with the install and past games, we really wanted to try to not do a large install. So there is an install when you launch SOCOM 4, but it's really small, and I don't even think we display an install screen for it because it's so small. So we do have one, but we tried to keep it really lightweight and small because we want to get people to put in the disc and get into the game as quickly as possible. I know in the beta, I'm sure that another thing that comes up is the additional download screen. Again, that's only for the beta. We kind of split up the data that people are downloading into two chunks, one that we threw up on the store and then one that we're pushing through another data delivery service. And the main reason for that, again, is to test that system. By having all that data downloaded separately, we're able to test our data update system. But when you play the game, all that data is already on the disk. You won't be downloading 1.5 gigs of additional data once you launch the game.
Selected characters and weapon loadouts currently do not carry over from match to match. Is that by design, or is this a bug?
That's a bug, and I think it specifically has to do with when you're playing as alternate characters or going between restricted game types like Scrum and some of the other ones where you have restricted weapon sets. So it is a bug. It's something we know about. It's something that we're looking to address.
Some modes have you play extra rounds even though the outcome has already been determined. So, for example, if you've won the first 6 rounds of an 11-round suppression match, you end up playing round 7, 8, or 9. I already know it's a bug, but officially, is that a bug?
That's a bug.
Yeah, there you go. So we're fixing that one, right?
Again, this is what the beta is all about. We've been able to identify some good bugs here, and in that one in particular, maybe I shouldn't say how you exactly cause it, but maybe I will. But these are things that come up when we get more people playing it. But that one in particular, we noticed that was happening in Bomb Squad and Uplink, where we had even number of rounds. And if you, like in Uplink, if you killed the entire other team, rather than doing the objective, then for some reason it wasn't counting towards the best of count. So it was going on above and making you play more games than you should. So, I think we understand what that issue is, and we're looking to address it.
Are there any other bugs that are currently being addressed that you want to point out here? We've gone over some of the more major ones. Was there anything else you wanted to call out?
Well, we actually have a long list of things that we're starting to address. So, there's lots of things that, big things, small things that are bugs or other issues or tweaks that we're making. So,
speaking of tweaks, let's move into that part of the.
Yeah, that's our next section is feature add and tweak requests. This is probably actually more popular than reporting bugs and glitches because it's a lot easier to say, I think this would be better in the game, or I don't like this as much as actually going in there and finding specific causes for glitches. So it makes sense. But obviously, the most popular request out there is pushing the camera back. We've already said that we're adjusting this before the beta started. We have before, and we still are. But can you talk about the differences between what the camera will ultimately be like in standard mode versus classic mode? And just how far back are we looking to push this thing? Are we going as far back as spectator mode, further, closer? What is it that we can expect?
So, yes, this is one thing that, again, doing a beta is so valuable. We get used to the camera. So I think most people here are used to the way it's been implemented. We've been playing this game for a very long time. People have been jumping in. And so getting that initial reaction to some of these issues, and, we got some reaction from the community day event we did here from some of the people playing it. And we actually addressed those specific issues that they were mentioning where in crouch your character was getting in the way, and it was good to get that feedback. But then, we really got a lot of other feedback about camera issues that, when we sit back and we look at them more abstract and take the community feedback, we realize are big issues as well. So the camera is the number one thing we're focusing on. We are looking at making a number of changes to it to address the feedback. So it's not just, none of these things with a system like this is as simple as pulling the camera back or something like that.
Why not?
Well, because they, some of the things are intertwined systems. Like there's two big items that people are complaining about. One is the distance from the camera to the character. The second is the camera collision, where it's colliding with the environment. Those are actually two completely separate issues, but one affects the other. So if we pulled the camera back, then it would make the camera collision worse. The camera collision is a very complicated. Actually, it's not complicated, but there's a lot of tweaking and refinement that we need to do to it to make it behave well.
You can't just make it.
Yeah, we can't just make it not collide with objects in the environment. But I think, again, we were used to the way it collided, and we were used to the speed of it. And in many ways, that was originally intentional because, you get a more responsive camera. We get it back to where we want it to be. We get it out of the player's way, and we get it back to where we want to be as quickly as possible. The thought would be that's what's best for gameplay. But obviously, it is very disorientating, and we got used to it. It doesn't disorientate anyone here. But I think that once it went broader, it definitely disorientates a lot of people. So it's definitely something we're going to be addressing, how the camera collides with the environment, the speed at which it goes in and out, the speed at which it goes out, delays between when it goes out. There's all kinds of things that we need to do to improve it, looking at how the collision works with the camera, with the environment, and making that as good as possible. Certainly, a camera collision is an issue with any third-person game. So it's not just an issue that we have that no other game has. All the other third-person games have it. Previous SOCOM games have had it. But I think that we were too aggressive with how quickly we collide the camera or move it in and out. And that's the big thing that people are reacting to negatively that we're looking to comprehensively evaluate and adjust.
So how far back If because that's going to be the question. If we don't answer it now, that'll come out as a podcast. How far back are we looking to pull it?
That's one of the things we're still evaluating. So we have different settings. It's not just a matter of distance from the character. It's also field of view. So anyone that may have a still camera is probably somewhat aware of field of view and how that reacts to how wide the image is. And so we're looking at adjusting the field of view to make it wider, and that will allow you to see more of your character and will allow you to see have better peripheral vision. That's another thing people have complained about, is that they can't see enough the characters that are next to them. They feel claustrophobic. Well, that's mainly the field of view and not the camera distance. So that is something we're looking to address. And then we're also looking to address the camera distance from the character and getting it into the right spot without making it so that the camera collision just gets way worse. So I don't think we have a set distance right now. It's something that we're aggressively looking at. But as you can see,
I think you have a meeting about it later today, right?
I do, yes. I have a meeting about. As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and that's why it's not as simple as just move the camera and patch it. It's never, for something like this, it's never that simple. It's a bunch of areas that need to be tweaked and refined, and that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to address it and address it right and fix it and get a good fix out for it, rather than doing some knee-jerk reaction fix that's probably going to make things worse.
And one last thing before I let Chris get in a word in edgewise is it going to be an option or a replacement?
That's one of the items of discussion. I think that we're looking at possibly just doing a replacement. I mean, we want to get the camera to where we feel it should be and then have that be the camera for all game modes. If we feel that there is a need to do two separate cameras, then maybe we'll look at that. But ideally, it is just one, and we don't have to worry about people with a further out camera having an advantage over people with a closer in camera or any of those issues. At the same time, we don't want to pull the camera out so much that it detracts from the look and feel of the game, because if your character is really small on the screen, then he doesn't look very good, and it can make everything, all the enemies and all the objects and everything,
look a little dated,
look small on the screen, and make the game look a little dated. And so we're trying to find the right spot for that. But definitely, we acknowledge that the current camera is not ideal, and we're working to fix it.
And I lied. One more thing: is that in reference to only the classic camera, or both standard and classic? Would they get separate treatments? Would they get the same treatment?
Well, that's the thing. Our goal is not to have a separate classic and standard camera, but to have one. And if we can achieve that goal, then that's what's going to happen. If we feel that there's still a benefit in having different cameras, then we'll look at doing different cameras.
Cool.
Something very closely related to the camera would be hip firing and crosshairs. It's obvious that a large majority of players want the hip fire to be more accurate and a PS2 style crosshair to go with those. In a previous show, we talked about how the over the shoulder zoomed view is not as more accurate than the hip firing as people think that it is. Can you talk about this? Are there going to be any changes in place? What's happening with the crosshairs? Because that was another thing of maybe adding the center dot. We experimented with that. You hit on both of these subjects.
Yeah, so again, that's there's a lot to talk about there. Like these are not simple issues, which is why it's not as simple as just making a really quick change. It is something we're really looking closely at and finding the right solution for. So we even, we periodically we go back and we take a look at the previous games and look at what we did then and what we changed and why and what people's reactions are to that. And the crosshairs and the accuracy from third person is a really interesting one. In the previous games, and this is something that we've been looking at for some time, and it's kind of been a known issue, but it's not as quick and easy to address as we would like. So it kind of has fallen to the back burner a bit, but now we're trying to push it forward and address it, which is, in the previous games, we definitely had the first shots more accurate, and then it would spread out from there. And that's something that I've personally been pushing for some time to add into SOCOM 4, and something I'm continuing to push for. And it's just finding the right balance for that. How accurate do we make them? We don't want people to snipe from across the map with just a single shot. So it can't be 100% accurate, but it needs to be more accurate than we have now. And I think that will address most of the hip fire accuracy issues. because that's the way previous SOCOM games were. Previous SOCOM games, you can go back. I challenge some of these people to go back and play it because I've been doing that. Again, we definitely check with what we've done in the past. And those games were not as accurate as people would like you to believe. But the first few shots were accurate. And I do think that's what counts. And I encourage people to play more tactically by tapping and doing shorter bursts, using the single shot mode on some of these weapons. And I've felt for some time that's something that's really important to any SOCOM game. And that's something that we do want to address. We want to address quickly. But it does take quite a bit of tweaking and tuning to get that right, or finding the right system so that those initial shots are accurate and then the accuracy goes out from there. Because the last thing we want is somebody to have the equivalent of a laser beam that they're aiming around the environment on full auto and with pinpoint accuracy taking people out. That's not going to be fun for anyone. We can make the game 100% accurate with every weapon all the time, and the game would suck.
What effect, if any, would that have on the L1 zoom mode, or even let's just say the zoom, the full-on R3 zoom, and what kind of factor do things like recoil and whatnot have with that?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with this. The L1 zoom, I mean, there's negatives when you go into aim mode. You can't move as fast. I know some people are like, well, you should be able to move full speed. Well, then that kind of, then that's kind of different from what we had intended for it. You do get an accuracy bonus because you have more of a limited field of view. Again, the camera's pushed in. You can't see as wide. You're not moving. So
the control slows down a little bit so you can track people better. Yeah,
you can't strafe as much. Your controls slow down. So that's all intentional. It's kind of supposed to be the negative of getting that accuracy boost. But you know what? I mean, people are always going about realism and then there's other people just wanting to have a really quick arcade style run and gun, and they all call themselves the hardcore SOCOM vets. So that's a funny thing. But there's definitely two camps there, and I'm not trying to say that we're trying to please both, but at the same time we are trying to not go too far in one direction or the other, because SOCOM has always been in the middle there. It's not an arcade run and gun game. It never has been. There's been lots of tactics and realism in how you use the weapons in the game. And at the same time, it's not overly realistic and authentic where it impacts the fun and play of the game. So it is a fine balance between those two. And a lot of people, I see just as many people wanting it one way over the other. There's no consensus out there. And I know that people love to say, oh, well, everyone's just been asking for this. Well, they've been asking for different things. And going back to some of the crosshairs, I mean, again, our crosshairs are very similar to previous games. We don't have the center dot, but otherwise it's very similar to SOCOM 2. In SOCOM 2, if you look at it, there's a small, black circle on the crosshair as well. People are complaining like crazy about this circle in the crosshair in SOCOM 4. I don't know what they're complaining about. Yes, it's a white circle, not a black circle, but we did, tone down the transparency and try to make it more translucent so it didn't get in the way. But, we actually think the circle is good for representing the area of accuracy that you have. And without it, that becomes way too vague. And again, previous SOCOM games, you had that accuracy as well. People complain tons about bullet spray and bloom, and I don't know what they call it. The old SOCOM games had that element. And if you don't believe me, go play it. Fire on full auto. You'll see bullets spray or bloom. It's there. And again, that encourages you to play tactically, encourages you to tap, use single rounds, use bursts. Don't go full auto. The game was never meant for you to run around the environment full auto, spraying bullets as a laser and taking people out. And I know, yeah, that may make it easier for you to kill other people, but it's going to make it easier for them to kill you too. And so, I think some people's knee-jerk reaction is they want the game to make them a better player and help them out a little bit more. But we want people to become skillful. We want them to learn how to play the game and become better at the game rather than the game, just being streamlined and so easy and so accurate that they can pick it up out of the box and start getting a ton of kills. That's not what we want SOCOM 4 to be.
Leading via the D-pad instead of having the cover system for classic mode comes up a lot. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of D-pad lean. It was one of those things that was, cut from SOCOM 4 ages ago, and it was never in SOCOM 4.
By cut, you mean on the drawing board, not it was in the game and we took it out.
Yeah, there was originally a design for it. It was cut ages ago for whatever reason. It was never implemented. And it's something that I've always wanted to see make a comeback as well, because I definitely see the value of being able to lean anywhere. I do think it's more of an advanced skill, but obviously I used it all the time. I'd love to use it again. It's something that we're evaluating. It's one of those things that is not trivial to implement. If we do it, we want to do it right and make sure it's polished. That's why we have spent a lot of time on the cover system and getting that polished and working right, and how we're happy with it. And a lot of design and effort has gone into that. So that's certainly why it's easier for us to use that system over D-pad lean at this time. But at the same time, I definitely would like to see it make a comeback, but I can't make any promises at the same time too, because it's something that we're still investigating and seeing what we can get done and implemented, and make sure we do it right.
What would be the major roadblock in something like D-pad lean happening or not happening? Is it? I realize it's there are technical hurdles to get over, but is it a matter of one particular technical hurdle, or is it a combination of them?
It's animation and how it interfaces with our animation system. So, getting the animations, getting them to work with all the characters, all the different states. We have tons of different states with the character and the animations he uses, and trying to get that system in and refine it so that it looks good and works well is the big issue. And again, it's not a drop-in. It's not something that we can just drop in and easily implement. It's something that, it takes a bit of work and refinement to get right.
There have been some requests regarding grenades. The big one is obviously the grenade arc. Some folks want to back in so they can more accurately, just toss it through a window or whatever.
And by back in, we mean, and it was in the older SOCOM games and in the Eddie 3.
Right, yeah. Because it was in the game at one point. And then there's also been requests for things like being able to cook grenades. Are the grenades going to change at all?
Yeah, one of the things we forgot to mention is one of the worst bugs in the game right now is actually we have a grenade bug in there, which causes grenades to not go where they're supposed to go in a lot of situations. So, again, we have a lot of the simulation done on the server, and that's one area where there's a bit of a client-server mismatch. And so you are trying to throw a grenade to a certain location. The server says, oh, you didn't try to throw it there. You tried to throw it someplace else. And it will actually change where it's going. And, I've seen the grenade fail videos, and that's actually a cause of that server bug. So that's something we already have fixed. And I hope to get out to the beta soon so that people, I think that's tainting a lot of people's opinion of the grenade system as it is now, because it is broken. It has this bug that has broken the system, and grenades are not going where they're supposed to go a good number of times.
But even if it doesn't make the beta, it will be fixed day one.
It's already fixed. So we're just trying to see when we get that into the beta and how we get it into the beta.
And how about the grenade arc itself?
The grenade arc is something, again, I would like to see make a comeback. It's something that initially we had a number of button conflicts with keeping it, and the new grenade system does work really well. I know some people may disagree with that, especially since it's broken in the beta. So it makes it, some people are probably laughing right now. The grenade system works really well, but it does when it works and it's not broken by a bug. But we would definitely like to see the grenade arc come back. And I brought this up with the team that works on that, and they were kind of their eyes got wide because they didn't like the grenade arc that we had in there because it wasn't as accurate as previous SOCOM games. So again, it's one of those things, rather than just putting it back in and having a mismatch between where the arc is and where the grenade actually goes, which is something we've always struggled with past SOCOM games, we are looking at bringing it back and fixing it and making sure that the arc is really where that grenade is going to go. Because if you're relying on that arc to pinpoint throw the grenade, well, that grenade better go there. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the arc? So it's again, not one of those things
Transport animals.
Yeah. Again, it's not one of those things that we can easily just turn back on because it was in there before, because it was broken before. So we need to go and we need to fix it. We need to refine it, make sure it works. And, getting that trajectory to match perfectly with where the grenade goes, that's not an easy task. That's why very few games actually have accurate grenade arcs. Yes, some have had it in the past, but then the grenade doesn't follow that arc. So it's something that we'd like to put back in, but we also want to fix it and do it right.
So real quick, one-word answers on these to finish up Chris's question. You can just say possible or not possible. Pressure-sensitive grenades.
We've tried that in the past. Never worked well.
That's 5 words on 7 words now. Okay. And then the other one is cooking them.
We've never had cooking grenades in SOCOM.
And we're never going to?
I wouldn't say that, but then it becomes a button issue again. Like, what button do you hold to cook it if you have the grenade arc out? So, and it's a user interface issue. Not saying it can't be solved, but it's not at the top of our plate right now.
Guns Hot was a hot button debate before.
Nice pun.
Yeah, you like that one? I worked all day on it before the beta, and it continues to be popular right now. If you don't know what Guns Hot is, that basically means when there's an enemy nearby and you can't see them, your weapon sort of...
Well, even if you can't see them, your weapon still goes
reacts. Yeah, you're like, oh, what's that? It's sort of like a sixth sense thing. That's come up a lot. What are the chances that something like that is going to be put in the game based on the beta feedback?
Well, again, this is one of those things. I wouldn't even say based on the beta feedback. I've been pushing for Guns Hot for some time, and I want to see it back in the game. And again,
now
it's
to
it's
clarify
an
real
issue.
quick, though, let me interrupt this. Is Guns Hot wasn't needed so much when there was the radar and the E-tags and all that kind of stuff in the classic mode. But now that those are, because they would help you track down the other players at the end of the round. But now that those have been removed, now there's kind of the need for something else to replace them to help you find other people.
Yes, good old cause and effect.
Yes.
Yes. But, even before then, that system went in, there's been a debate over whether we add it or not. And again, the issue with that one is it has to interact with our animation system. So we have all these locomotion animations of moving slowly, moving in crouch, moving quickly, all kinds of different jumping, there's all kinds of different states, and doing Guns Hot versions of those states and non-Guns Hot version of those states isn't as easy in our game engine currently. And so it's something that we've actually wanted to put in for some time, but it's not an easy thing to put in. Unfortunately, it's not that simple as just putting in this animation, because it affects a number of different systems and how it interacts with those. And it's something I've been pushing for some time, and something I really want to see in there, because I definitely see the value of Guns Hot and not. And it's something I've been advocating for some time. But, all these things, I agree are important to the game. But we've had so many things that are important to the game and getting the game done. So I'm not trying to cop out here. I'm not trying to say that, I've been wanting this all this time. We've had to prioritize a lot with the game. We have a full single player game. We have a full co-op game. It's easier for us to patch the multiplayer and know, well, it's not easier. It's like when we patch the multiplayer, you're connected online. So we know you have to download the patch to connect online. That's not the case for single player and our instant action missions, which are based off the co-op. So we had to prioritize those areas of the game and get those games up to a high level and get them done. And then now we're going back to some of these issues with multiplayer and getting this feedback and seeing how we can address those issues. It's not that we felt that none of these are important. Actually, I feel that they're very important. It's that we've had to get the single player portion of the game done, get the co-op portion of the game done. And that was a huge effort and a huge push. It was a huge game, getting it to a level which we felt it needed to be. And now we're able to go back to some of these other more multiplayer-specific issues that unfortunately haven't been getting the attention that I actually agree they deserve.
Another thing to having to do similarly with notifications of sorts, speaking of Guns Hot, is when somebody talks on the mic, players are asking for better notification, that somebody's talking, that your mic goes on, that somebody all these sorts of things.
That the entire team has mics on or off icons.
Is any of this changing?
Yeah, this is specifically for the tap to talk mode, right? So In the open mic, we have a lot of notification for that, just HUD indicators, and it's open mic, so you don't really need the tones, but certainly for the tap to talk version, again, that's something that unfortunately just didn't get refined as much as it should, and we've written up a spec for how to address that, improve it greatly, and we're hoping to get that costed out and see when we can get that done. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that I can't promise you anything, but it's certainly something we're taking a very good look at and we want to address, and we're looking to see how we can address it.
Before we go, there are some other frequent topics that come up as well. The voting system, for example, it takes up a lot of real estate on the screen when that comes fixed. There you go. Boom. The institution of a party system, that one I'll get back to in a second. Adding a red crosshair when hovering over an enemy versus when you shoot them.
Yeah, that one I would like to mention. I know I'm probably taking too long on some of these. I know there's a debate on that, and that's a hard one. We actually, it's done that way on purpose. We don't want you to be able to just fish with the crosshair and find somebody and shoot them, because what's the purpose of hiding in a bush if somebody can just run their crosshair and see it goes red? And I know that encourages camping to a certain extent. It absolutely does, but it does add to the realism of the game. Having your crosshair turn red when somebody's behind a bush, that's not realism. No way is that realism.
I also think that's more of a reaction to also not having something like Guns Hot in there. So I think that if you have a Guns Hot, the need for something like that would go away. And vice versa.
Yeah, I agree.
If you had that, you wouldn't need the Guns Hot necessarily. But I prefer the Guns Hot way of doing it because I do think that it's a little bit more subtle than
having it just turn red, and then all of a sudden you've seen through this thing and you can kill the guy through something that you can't see through.
But there are stance indicators letting you know whether or not you're prone, or which should be obvious, I would think, because you're laying down. But
not prone, but crouched or standing.
Yeah, crouched and standing is the big one.
Yeah.
But then getting back to the original question, or the original part of the question that I said I'd get back to later, is the party system. That one has come up quite a bit, especially since we've turned off clan challenges. Is there anything you have to say about that?
Well, we're definitely working on a party system. I can't say when it's going to be done. Again, it's something we want to do correctly and get right, and it's something that we're definitely working on and trying to get completed as quickly as possible. And
we've made adjustments to it based on a lot of what we've heard from the beta feedback. So, I mean, to lay that all on the table, we had it working one way, and we've heard some feedback from players and said, yeah, you know what, we should probably do that too. And so now we're going in there and we're doing some modifications to it. Is that fair?
Yep.
Yeah.
The HUD indicators. That's another one I want to talk about.
Okay.
So that one's fixed.
And for those who don't know what the HUD indicators are?
So the names of your teammates and how you would see your teammate on the screen, but you wouldn't see the halo. We call it the halo, the name above his head. So that was just, we fixed that issue. It's unfortunately wasn't implemented in an ideal way. So now we've changed the implementation of that, and it's much better.
How realistic is it to expect updates to the game once it's out, April 19th, reserve for your copy now. But once it's out, how realistic is it for people to expect updates to not only address some things we talked about here, but maybe some other things that come up after the game is out, or things that we're aware of now but just aren't as high priority?
Well, we definitely, want to continue to support the title and, make it the best game possible. So I think we feel pretty happy that we have a solid core of a game. And it was never our intention to make SOCOM 2. And the game is not going to be SOCOM 2. It's not going to have every feature that SOCOM 2 has. That's not what we set out to do. We set out to make, a new SOCOM, with SOCOM 4. And so, we're happy with where we are. Obviously, there's things that need to be improved. And the community's been great at pointing out those issues and helping us prioritize what needs to get done and in the order that they need to get done.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about how the beta is going, or
your personal phone number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to add before the show ends?
Again, keep that feedback coming. But it is important to, just saying, oh, it's not SOCOM 2. Well, it wasn't supposed to be. So if you thought it was going to be SOCOM 2 and that's what you were expecting, you probably haven't been checking out the blogs or seeing any of our interviews or anything else, because this isn't SOCOM 2 HD, never the intention, but keep that feedback coming, and we want to hear from you. We want to see how we can improve this game, not turn this game into SOCOM 2, because we're not going to do that. But we definitely want feedback on how we can make this game better, and we'll definitely see what we can do.
That is the end of our show. Thank you very much, Seth, for coming in. I know a lot of people out there have more questions for us and for Seth, but there's ways that they can submit those.
You could send them to Zipline at zipperint.com.
Plug. You can also hop into the official forums on both mag.com and SOCOM.com and post on a thread and discuss things amongst yourselves like you normally do. And chances are, if it's a hot button topic, Chris or I will recognize it, post it, and stick it in a podcast.
And as always, you can find us on your favorite social networks, if those are called Twitter or Facebook. You can go to twitter.com/Zipper, and on Facebook, you can search for either Zipper Interactive or SOCOM. Now, before we end the show this week, we want to do a special shout-out to a audio contractor whose contract is up. Just as a real quick behind-the-scenes thing that happens here, basically, we get into a room and we record the show, and then Brandon comes in here, and he does a noise pass, and he checks all the levels, and he does all that kind of stuff, and he works on it for, an hour or two every week, and then he sends me the show, and then I do the content editing. But basically, before I get the show, it already sounds great, and all that stuff has already been done. Brandon's contract is unfortunately ending, and so he won't be around to do that part of the show anymore, so somebody else will have to take over for him.
But on behalf of everybody here, especially Chris and I who work with him so often, thank you to Brandon for helping us out. Been an invaluable ally in putting this together.
And he also usually takes the photos.
That's right. He is the cameraman behind our photographs. And he's done a lot more than that, too. He's also been very helpful for the audio team.
And setting up the show and stuff like that.
Setting up the show. He's done a lot of stuff. But so, thanks, dude. We appreciate it. We wish you luck in the future. And if you guys are looking for a very knowledgeable audio guy, we know somebody who's looking.
Yeah. The next episode of Zipline will be on April 8th. We don't know who we're going to bring on yet.
No.
So
we'll be here.
Yeah,
you'll be back from vacation, right?
I'll be back. Yeah, I come back. I come back the first Monday of April.
I still
Vacation, huh?
Yeah. I still think it's very admirable that you came in right now when you're on paternity leave.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. You just wanted me to show you your new shirt. Actually, that's an old shirt.
No, that's an old shirt.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the end of the show. We will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Chris doesn't like it when we get personal.
No, that's all right. But we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.
Yeah.